Hey guys, welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans, and welcome to the first proper review of 2025. We're going to have a chat through the pre-season game between North Melbourne and the Dees that took place at Arden Street yesterday, the 22nd of February. Unfortunately, not our day. We went down to the Dees by 47 points in the end. The final score is 117 for the Dees to North Melbourne's 70. The preseason is always a really funny one. It's trying to find that balance between trying to take the positives out of it and then just trying to process it and move on. It's really hard to know how much of what was on display at Arden Street yesterday is a reflection of where North Melbourne is going to be sitting in season 2025. I think there's a fair bit to unpack. I guess I just want to have a chat through a few different talking points, a few players that really caught my eye for one reason or another, and then just sort of look to move on ahead to next week when we take on West Coast in Bunbury. I think just the overall feeling for mine anyway is it was a disappointing display, but I'm not disappointed, if that makes sense. I think with North, I just feel like there's been so much hype around where we're going in 2025 and what we're going to be able to put out on the park. And the intra-club was really, really exciting and really, really fun last week. So going into the game on the weekend against the Dees, I just thought it's our first real chance to have a crack at it. And it was just a little bit lackluster and it kind of fell a bit flat. I know it was hot. I know that not every player played all the minutes that we needed and they probably were going half pace at some points during the game. And I know that we'll probably look different once again come round one. But it's more just there was no response to the hype. Well, there was little response to the hype. I don't think there was no response to the hype. There was just little response to the hype. We've all been so excited, and you guys know. I mean, that's my buzzword of the preseason is exciting, and bits and pieces of last Saturday's game, the intra-club game was really exciting. So I think we probably just wanted that same sort of look and feel heading into today's game, and it was anything but that. And I guess the biggest takeaway for me is that we can play defensively and we can play offensively, but we just can't do it all in the same game yet. And maybe that's just something that we'll need to work on as our side does learn to mature and we do play a little bit more together as a unit, or if that was just something that took place on the day, I'm not sure, and we won't really know until about round 4 or 5 into the AFL season, into the home and away season, where we're really sitting. But you kind of look at the game, it was a game of two halves. You've got, in the first 3 quarters, it was pretty close, and we actually stuck with the D's for majority of the first 3 quarters. The first half was a real defensive scrap, and we were able to play really, really well defensively. We could retain our ball inside our attacking half of the ground for extended periods of time, give ourselves repeat entries, give ourselves opportunities to score. And then when we moved into the midfield, despite the fact that it was pretty pristine conditions, it was a scrap. It was a real scrap. It was a bit of a dogfight. The skills, they were a bit ugly. We weren't really moving the ball well. It was pretty clunky. It was pretty ordinary. But for the most part, we were able to keep the game on neutral terms and on our terms and kind of play how we wanted to and stay in touch with the D's. After halftime, it was a different story. In the third quarter, I feel like our ball movement was so much better. The skills looked like they were a little bit more up to scratch. The best ball users were getting ball in hand. Sheeds was getting more involved. LDU was getting more involved. Powell, Phillip, McKercher, these guys were getting around the ball a lot more. But then on the flip side, the Melbourne attack, they were just able to transition the ball from one end to the other so quickly, so seamlessly. They found holes in our defense. So then when we looked better, so did the D's. So it's kind of like trying to be able to find that balance of playing both offensively and defensively within the one game, making changes in the one game within the same quarter, rather than it being like a game of two halves, the way it probably looked at parts during Saturday's game. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's so hard to know exactly what to take out of it. There definitely are still issues reoccurring that we did see last season. I think the dump kick into the forward 50 is so frustrating sometimes. And the acquisition of Darling was really to help this a lot, I found, with him. And he was one of our best players on the ground yesterday. There's no doubt about it. When the ball comes in and hit and hope inside the forward 50, having Darling there is just another body to be able to, if not mark the ball, ball, then at least create a contest, bring the ball to ground, and then you've got those buzzy small forwards at your feet being able to take it off the deck and opening up an opportunity for goal. But we can't just do that all the time because Jack Darling is there. There are times where lowering the eyes is the better option, and I still feel like we do panic a little bit under pressure. We do have very few players who can just stay cool, calm and collected with ball in hand at all times, whether they're under pressure, whether they've got all the time in the world. It's just being able to not rush and being able to, obviously it's a game of seconds and inches, but being able to still lower the eyes and not just hit in hope 99% of the time. Because while Jack Darling was able to, present at the ball, he led really strongly at the ball, he definitely did make a contest and bring the ball to ground. Half the time we still don't have the cattle to meet him there at his feet and then have those opportunistic goals. Robert Hansen Jr., who has really shown a lot over the preseason and in his training and in his development, did play quite well yesterday, but he was sort of pushing up the ground. He wasn't really playing that small forward role. Constanti was serviceable in the forward line, but he wasn't exactly creating opportunities. He was good defensively, but he wasn't really doing much in terms of actually generating scoring opportunities. So it's which one of the two of them do you go with come round one? Because I think that it looks like the two of them actually are fighting for that small forward position, and right now, both of them are giving us little bits, but probably not enough, that really, in my mind anyway, says that one would be better over the other. As I mentioned before, our defensive running is just not there still. We're quite leaky, especially in the middle of the ground. And I do feel for our defenders because I think individually they all played fairly well. I actually thought Luke McDonald held his own really well. I thought that Logue, Comben and Core all contributed nicely. I thought Archer had some nice moments as well, but there's also only so much they can do when the ball is coming into our defensive 50 really frequently and at a pretty fast pace. Unfortunately, they aren't going to be able to stop everything. I did think that Caleb Daniel did play his well off the halfback really, really well. He's such a great user of the footy, but if we did learn anything, it's that he won't be able to do this alone in 2025 either. We are going to need to have one of Colby or Shees, I think, still off a running halfback. We just need better ball users to help move the ball out of the defensive 50. That is a really challenging thing with Luke McDonald and Darcy Tucker as well. Defensively, yes, they were both really good. I thought that Tucker was serviceable. I thought that Luke McDonald had a better game, but neither of them are really contributing in terms of skill. That was a knock I had on Zach Fisher last year as well. Sure, the intent is there and maybe the defensive pressures and acts are there, but actually clearing the ball out of the defensive 50, a lot of the time it is just turned over. With Finn O'Sullivan coming into the side, and just he was explosive in that first half in particular before he was subbed out of the game. But Finn O'Sullivan does give us the opportunity to have Bailey Scott on one wing, Finn O'Sullivan on the other, because he was running majority of the time on the outside, and then we could push McKercher back to halfback for another year if needed. It's really just to get these guys around the ball and get them involved. I mean, a lot of these guys were missing in the first half. Shees, Kirch, LDU, they only grew into the game in the second half when we were able to get them around the ball more, and as a result we were able to move the ball better down the ground to our offensive 50. But then, like I said, going back the other way, it was a bit of a disaster. We just fell down and we just lay down and let the Dees walk all over us. Cozzy Pickett was far and beyond the best player on the ground. We had absolutely no answers for him. Sherry didn't look like he was going at 100%. Tom Campbell absolutely had the better of him. And I think when you look at both sides on paper, we were pretty close to a full strength side, I would have thought, but the D's had quite a few notable outs. And I think it just comes back to that first point that I made, that I'm not sitting here and I'm not kicking and screaming over the result, but on the flip side, it really would have been nice for us to show up and really give fans something to get excited about, because up until this point, it's been really, really exciting and we all really feel like something is building internally. But then when you actually put it to the test against what was in reality a half-strength D side, we just weren't up to it. So I think overall, disappointing, but not disappointed. And I think you kind of just have to go into these preseason games and see what we can do, take what we can take from it, and then move on. It's also really important to remember we actually play Melbourne in round 2 at Marvel Stadium. So was this just a tactical thing? Don't cook ourselves in the heat. Don't give too many of our secrets away before we play the D's literally in another 3 or 4 weeks' time. I don't know. Maybe I'm clutching at straws here, but there are so many unknowns and there are so many possibilities that we just aren't aware of. And as a side, sure, I would have liked to have probably seen more. And as a supporter, I wanted to just feel an extension of that excitement we have been feeling for the past sort of 6 to 8 weeks. But I'm not really taking too much of a look into this at this stage. Maybe that'll be proven wrong in 5 or 6 weeks down the track if we aren't able to fire straight away in the home and away season. But for now, I'm comfortable with my assessment and my takeaways from today's game. Just want to touch on a few individual players. I did mention Jack Darling at the top of the show, and I just want to come back to this man once again. I know that I have been really, really hot on his recruitment since he came across, so maybe that is me looking for him and looking to see what he can do, but I don't think that you can deny the impact that he had on our side today. He was presenting really, really nicely at the ball. He kicked a really nice goal. He did open up opportunities for Larky. He kicked a few goals as well. He also was pinch hitting in the ruck. He grabbed a few straight out of the ruck, Tom Hawkins style. I just think he gives us so many opportunities and so many more options. I think he's also just someone you can really rely on. You know he's going to have an impact just about every time he's around the ground, whether that's taking a mark, whether that's just being an extra body, a bigger body to bring the ball to ground, whether it's having a shot on goal, whether it's throwing his weight around, whether it's laying a tackle. I think Jack Darling does really add another dimension to our side that we have been missing for so long. I do think that our forwards otherwise were pretty underwhelming. Larky did kick a few goals, but Curtis was pretty quiet, Zerha was pretty quiet, Constanti and Robert Hansen Jr. had their moments, but they didn't really provide much of an impact, particularly in front of goals. And I think that maybe Darling's role is to bring the ball to ground, and then it allows the likes of an LDU or a Sheasel or even a Colby McKercher to come past. Maybe that's part of the plan of putting Zane Dersmer in the middle of the ground. I know Ders didn't play today, but we did see him spend most of his time in the midfield last week during the intra-club. So it kind of makes me think about how we might look to utilise him and the rest of the forwards heading into season 2025. I also thought Will Phillips was just outstanding once again. His tackling is outstanding, but so is his ball use. He's such a clean user of the football. He is one that really takes his time. He's really patient. He definitely lowered the eyes and did make some really, really smart choices. I felt really comfortable when the ball was in his hands, and I really think that he's pushing hard for a selection in round one. I also loved the last quarter from Luke Parker. I thought him in the middle of the ground was really, really damaging. He was definitely someone that was trying to create something out of nothing, trying to generate play as much as he could, despite the fact the game was, all done and dusted not long into the fourth quarter. So it'd be interesting to see how much time he spends in the midfield and then up forward and how much he rotates, because in my mind, he was always doing a 70-30 split. 70 up front, 30 in the midfield, but maybe that moves more of 50-50 split and we throw him in the middle when we really, really need him to. Like I said, the likes of LDU, Sheasel, they worked their way into the game as the game went on. I thought Tom Powell once again had a really, really good game. I actually didn't mind what Dylan Stevens was able to add when he came onto the ground in the second half. Cherry was comprehensively beaten, but Goad did a couple of nice things. I thought that all of our key defenders had their moments, but unfortunately there is only so much they are going to be able to do and going to be able to stop. I also loved the game from Caleb Daniel. Like I said earlier, I really think he's another great find for us. His ball use off the halfback is second to none, but also his work rate. He's constantly looking for the second and third follow-up, and I think he's going to be someone that's so important to this side in season 2025. And I know I touched on Finn O'Sullivan, but God, let's just touch on him one more time. Fossball was so hot at Arden Street this morning, and it wasn't about the weather. He looked so exciting, and he honestly could be the best of the bunch at this point. I think what he offers, that class on the outside, is something that we really don't have, and it's something that hopefully we can also utilise to rejuvenate Bailey Scott. I think Bailey Scott's probably just missing a little bit at the moment. I think his run and his tank is something that we really, really need to tap into as the games go on and as the weeks go by. And, there's a reason that 18 months ago, he was finished in our top 3 in our best and fairest. We know he's capable. We've just got to try and unlock it from him. So plenty to like, I think, in bits and pieces from this game. If you want to look into it deep enough, overall disappointing, but I don't think that is all done and dusted for our year. I think there's still so much to look forward to. But that is just my thoughts on the game from Arden Street yesterday. I'd love to hear from you guys. Leave all of your thoughts down in the comments below. We can also have a chat about it over on socials, Kanga TV Show on X, Instagram, and Facebook. I will be back later in the week for a preview for the West Coast game over at Hands Stadium in Bunbury. And then on Saturday, late afternoon, I'm doing the one thing I said I would never do. I said I would never do a watch along. I said Black and Blue when I started Kanga TV, I would never do a watch along. But that was before I got a call up from the watch along king himself. I got a call from Pommy during the week, and Pommy said, I really want to do a watch along with you. And everything that I said I would do just went out the window. And I said to Pommy's a really good friend of mine. And I said to him, you know what, Pommy, for you, I will do it. So you better be here on Saturday night joining Pommy and I. We're going to be doing a watch along of the North West Coast preseason game. That's all, guys. Hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend, and I will see you during the week.